Hello and welcome to the Cyber Show. My name is Pip Blake and I'll be your host today. And I have a very special guest, and I'm going to start with an apology, ultimately, because I've known this man for 30 years. So if we go down a rabbit hole, I'm very sorry. But Mike, please introduce yourself.
Oh, thanks very much, Pip. Nice to meet everybody on the chat show. Hopefully you find this enjoyable. But I'm Mike. Mike Shaw. I've been around the cyber industry now for coming on 12 years now. Everything from distribution all the way through reseller land, vendor land, everything. But yeah, I'm 34. Known Pip, as you say, since we were 4 years old. Car ride sharing to nursery and school. So yeah, it's been a wild ride over 30 years.
So we'll try and stay off sort of all the personal stuff. We'll try and keep it cyber related, everyone. So I know you haven't necessarily. I think we'll start with the sort of the conventional way into cyber. I know yours hasn't necessarily been. You didn't do. I believe your master's was, or your degree was in sports science. So indeed, nothing to do with cyber, computer science, any of that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about the ride into cyber and how you got there.
Yeah. A weird one, as you say. So yeah, everything I did through school and university was just what I enjoyed doing, which, as you know, sports. You and I have played sports for many, many years together. And sports science was that natural fit. My mum always said that I was too lazy to be a doctor, so I thought I'd do halfway house of sports and biomechanical sciences. But after I left university, looking for jobs, I did spend 3 months in recruitment, and I was lumped in the cyber team in recruitment. Quite enjoyed the market and everything, but recruitment wasn't for me, as a lot of people tend to see. And then I got a job in Westcon Security, doing F5 as an internal. So very much quote managing and doing the kind of day-to-day running of a lot of the quote-based stuff for resellers and distribution. And that was based in Slough, up the road from where we are. So it was very much, I fell into it rather than anything else. I did have the benefit of my father being in IT for 40 years, in IT networking and dark fiber cabling and stuff. So that was kind of a natural progression for me into security, but then it kind of all tumbled on from there. I then got addicted to the more technical side of selling rather than anything else. So one of my previous bosses at Computer Centre once said to me, "You're one of the only salespeople that I've ever had that has never sold anything," which is a weird accolade to have. But yeah, I'm much more on that technical side. So bit of a weird route.
And where has it landed you now? So you're now at Umbrella?
Yes, I'm at Umbrella Security Industries, and it very much consultative side of sales and security. They're an MDR SOC as a services based provider with instant response and pen testing capabilities globally. Multiple reasons why I moved there, but my whole career trajectory was distribution. Then I helped a friend of ours set up his own distributor that was then bought by United Plus. That was called Securicom Global. And then I went into vendor land at one of the vendors. Sorry, I didn't. I went to Computer Centre first. I can't forget that. Rose the ranks and became the security solution leader, and then moved to vendor land.
Okay.
And then Umbrella was vendor number 2.
Nice. And what, in your opinion, so obviously you've done the disty side, you've done the reseller side, you've done the vendor side.
Yeah.
Obviously we do have, we've got a number of organisations who come on here. We have consultants, we have sort of certification bodies, we have, and obviously the vendors who ultimately are looking to tell the audience a little bit more about their products. So having experienced all three sort of sales, routes to market, sort of why have you landed on vendor? What have you learned from those and your journey through the distributor and reseller, and how has it kind of helped you get into cyber?
Oh, that's a good question. I think knowing everyone's motives at each level is the most important part. So the emotional intelligence side of understanding why someone is asking you questions and reaching out to you as often as they are. Distribution is a necessary level of security based on how the channel obviously works. Reseller land, you're constantly fighting from a reseller perspective on forecasting, on budgeting and stuff. So there's an urgency there that's slightly different to distribution. I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying it's a different ask. And at vendor land, it's different again. So the benefit I've reaped from having experience at all three levels is that because I understand why people are asking me the stuff that they are, I feel like I can't begrudge anyone. I can't say, well, you're just doing. I can just say you're just doing your job. You're not adding pressure. And that has led me in cyber to getting more on the people side and consultative side of cyber rather than the product side of cyber. That's just a wash of people trying to make it and climbing over each other to do what they need to do, rather than consultative side of things is a lot harder to do. And that's where I saw most of where my passion was from, as you say, going from distribution to then reseller land, trying to do consultative, and then going to vendor land and being consultative in vendor land is quite a tough task. But without that experience of all three levels, it would have been very difficult for me to do that.
And with becoming more technical as well, so again, no background whatsoever, no grounding, and I think there's lots of whether it's networking degrees, cyber degrees, computer science, sort of with Cisco, with CompTIA base certifications and things like that, all the body of knowledge in those bases. So how have you found sort of almost coming in completely green from, and part of the reason I'm asking this is because we've got quite a diverse audience. We've got people who've been in cyber a long time who are thinking, right, let's just get to sort of the more technical stuff, and then we've got the individuals who are sort of maybe they're looking to sort of get into cyber. So we try and cater for quite a wide audience. So why, how was it sort of becoming more technical without necessarily that technical base that a lot of individuals may have?
Yeah. So I can understand the drive to want to credential hunt, get as many letters at the end of your name as humanly possible kind of thing. It's like a badge of honor to say that you know what you're talking about. I found moving from sales into technical was an easier transition if you know the middle gaps between lots of different technical discussions. So if you take technical accreditations like CompTIA, like CEH for EC Council and stuff, they're all wonderful courses to give you that kind of baseline knowledge. My technical journey has been more around taking a massive information from hundreds of different vendors and trying to understand where they all fit of value to an end customer. Now that discussion is a lot more person to person, not technology to technology, because everyone's got different reasons for buying the same stuff or different stuff. You've got to try and figure out the middle ground between all of that, which is why sales to technical was easier than technical to sales, because those soft skills are things that you can't learn. The technical accreditations will always come. You just have to dedicate time to it. So building up those technical accreditations is easier to do as you're going through your career than it is to then try and pick up the sales type of things, because you'll be pigeonholed.
Yeah.
So my experience was very much because I've been through the hard graft of learning the sales strategies, the medic stuff, everything that you would need to adhere to be a good salesperson. I just was interested in tech, and I just got the gaps and how the technologies fitted and worked together, but from a people outcome. So if X customer was going to buy something for a technical reason, it's not just a technical decision. People and process is just as important as the technology decision. So the accreditations were very much I'll figure that out when I get to that point. I'm still kind of understanding that element of it. So it's a bit of a roundabout way of saying I don't really go for the accreditations unless I desperately have to. But
yeah, I think obviously with the audience that what I'm trying to sort of get to is that if you are listening or if you are watching and you are trying to sales is definitely cybersecurity sales is a route into the market, and you can
100%.
transition into consultancy. You can transition into the more technical side of things because we have living proof in front of us of someone who's done that. So tell us a little bit more about Umbrella. How I know obviously recently, about a year now that you're coming up.
No, I've only been there for 3 or 4 months at Umbrella now. So I started at the start of the year.
And what's the role there? Sorry,
the role I am senior sales engineer, pre-sales type function within Umbrella, but I'm the only one in Western Europe. So Umbrella is UK headquartered. Most of the SOC operations and everything's out of Greece, out of Athens. And part of what interested me about Umbrella was, as I've mentioned already, the journey from technical to then solution selling or selling to people effectively as an outcome. led me towards Umbrella. There's a lot of technologies. There's a lot of rubbish out there. Richard Steiner, I think his name is, the guy who writes the security yearbook every year. He's made a phenomenal career out of trying to profile all those vendors in a way that Gartner just doesn't quite, for some weird reason, have the capacity to do. That side of things will always exist. The problem is attributing all of that stuff to something that is an outcome at an end customer. So what Umbrella tries to do is it is an MDR and SOC as a services provider with its own MDR technology over the top, which is a data bus layer, effectively, that adds risk and compliance and people context and business context to what happens within SIEM, SOC, and all that kind of stuff. So it was very alluring to me because you have to talk to people, you have to talk about processes, and you have to talk about operations rather than technology. Umbrella tries to stay away from technology. They don't really care what the flavor is and what color of the badge is on the front of your servers and how much you're paying for your EDR type stuff, as an example. It's more of a, how do I get the information that everyone's trying to get and then package it in a way that is consumable for those that might not be in security. Okay. And that has to be applied to contextual-based stuff. And your good friend JJ as well is another good advocate of all of this, is trying to abstract the technical rubbish and data layer into something that is more tangible as either a security or an operations outcome for a business benefit.
Yeah.
And that's where Umbrella sits, is in the middle of there. And them being in Greece does mean that there is a price point which is great and makes it much easier for breaking Western Europe and stuff. But they also have focused heavily on building a SOC in Riyadh, in Saudi, for the APAC region, which you don't really see very often in MDR and SOC as a service providers to start with. So Greece for Eurozone, Riyadh for anything that area, and it's quite a nice little proposition.
Nice. And with that, obviously we've sort of touched on the sort of sales element, and you're talking there about a lot about the sort of the people element of it, and how you're sort of trying to package up the sort of technologies and ultimately or deconstruct the technologies and make it sort of more applicable to a particular individual or particular, whether it be sort of the CTO, CISO, et cetera. How has your sales, I suppose your sales sort of capability or your sales experience has helped you with that?
The experience previously has helped me take a very subjective subject and trying to make it objective for you to be able to sell. There need to be service packages, there need to be product type packages. But when you're so vendor agnostic, it's difficult to articulate that without sounding too much of a generalist. So it's a great challenge for me because you still have to have those productized starting points. You have to start from somewhere. You need a North Star, as one of my old bosses used to say, to aim for, and then you can start manipulating stuff around it. So when you are services-led rather than product-led, you do tend to have much longer sales cycles because of that, because there's a lot of variables that you can flex on. So it's a delicate balance between what you can flex on and what you can't flex on to shorten or expand sales cycles for whatever the customer wants. So that experience of being from vendor to disty to reseller has made it quite easy for me to package stuff in my head.
And with that sort of vendor agnostic piece, I know we sort of spoke about it sort of previously before the show. How do you compete with those who sort of, right, we're sort of solely this vendor, this is what we do? Why would they come with someone who's vendor agnostic when actually there's an organization, a different sort of solution, say, that is dedicated to that particular SIEM or whatever the case may be?
Yeah, it's a tough one. It depends on the customer and how you're talking to them. So if you're talking to an end customer that just says, take the problem away from me, that's great, because then we can do whatever we like. And if you're a single SIEM type solutions provider for SOC as a service, then great, all for it, crack on with it. It's when you are talking to a customer that says, I know I need to do this, I don't have the budget to have the people and process and build it all from scratch, because it takes a lot of time to feed and water and build it, but I still want to I don't want to diminish or relinquish, all of my control of vendor choices. So if I end up going to a customer that is a kind of a middle ground customer, 5,000, 10,000 seats, that head of security might say, I want to be able to choose the vendors that I want to use for enforcement, anything that is on the front lines of things. But I don't want to be wedded to a SOC services provider's vendor in case I want to change or swap or a breach happens, or there's so many different variables as to why someone might want to swap from something. So being able to cater for both instances, whether one customer will say, take the problem from me, and it'll be like, great, I'm going to use, I don't know, Sentinel, I'm going to use Q Radar, depending on what happens with Palo. But on the flip side, if you say to a customer, yeah, you're using Splunk or something, I can say, yeah, I could manage that for 6 months or so. But if you want us to transition to other things, these are the pros and cons of the service or solution. If you were to do so, it's a much less combative discussion than you would say in saying, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
This is what you got.
Okay. And obviously that flexibility is sort of part of the product USP, call it that. But does that not, in terms of that, having that flexibility, does it limit you when it comes to sort of larger organizations that you're looking to work with?
It does. Those larger organizations, you then have to balance between, do you have your own SOC and your own operations? Do you have your own way of running things? How would you want to chop and change things? Are there parts that you want to outsource and parts you want to keep? That becomes a much bigger conversation of that technology people process layer. What do you have the people? Do you have the processes, but do you not have the technology, or vice versa? What does it all look like? Those larger organizations are much harder. And Umbrella at the moment is breaking back into Western Europe. So at this point, it's probably safe to say that enterprise, while we are happy to cater for it and we have loads of enterprise customers of over 80, 90,000 seats, they're not going to be the ones that we're going to go and aim for proactively with the sales function. If they want to come to us, great, and they want to include us, not a problem. I'm not going to spend months and months trying to break into large organizations when there are medium SME type organizations that just need that problem taken away from them. So It is that balance of how far do you want to go, how much or how little, how consultative do you want to be.
Yeah. And what is from that perspective, obviously, what you guys have the niche that you're looking to approach. What does the product roadmap look like for you guys? And I think that kind of this show is obviously sort of titled the future of cyber resilience and that sort of thing. So we always bring it back to the title. We'll try to at least. How does that sort of tie in with what Umbrella are doing?
So that ties in with the direction that the cyber world is of collapsing a large security stack, vendor consolidation, outsourcing or managing risk as much as you can. You've got things like cyber insurers that are now becoming a bigger and bigger part of the market. Do you outsource from an indemnities perspective or contractually, or do you not? How do you mitigate risk against your organization is quite a large feature of the cyber world that is growing more and more and more. There's loads of GRC products coming out, and there's loads of risk analytics type tools that are coming out. That's the same kind of direction that Umbrella's trying to take. So if Umbrella has your MDR or your SOC as a service, well, why can't we layer on a service that is to do with managed risk and compliance, or managed risk and controls, as we call it? So applying a GRC type engine to MDR and SOC as a service, where that MDR and SOC as a service is largely vendor agnostic, does provide you with an extra bit of value, where you've got like a ServiceNow, for example, that might have GRC and ticketing and ITIL that you could, if you're not using the whole ServiceNow stack, you could offload it if you wanted to. But we don't charge customers for our product, Swordfish. We charge for the MDR service, or SOC as a service, which is a key differentiator for all that. So where we're going is risk and compliance, basically. They're the engines that we're building. That's where the machine learning and stuff is coming in. I'm going to avoid saying, am I doing it? Okay, I'm doing it.
You do it.
AI, hurrah. We're applying that as much as we can and very carefully, I think is the best way of putting it. I'll stop there.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, for those of you who may have just tuned in for this particular episode, I do my level best not to mention AI because there is another show done by Disruptive Live. It's called the AI Show. So please go check that out. But I think a lot of it's just one of the buzzwords which is out there at the moment. So you do have to mention it. So we'll forgive you for that, and I'm glad you mentioned it, not me.
Yeah, I know, right? I lost that buzzword bingo. I guess first round's on me later.
I know that. I know that. There's a lot of conversations out there, and I know that sort of the various conferences and shows which are going on, there is there's always a stream of of conversation around how it's going to impact our particular industry, how it's going to impact individuals, and obviously products as well, which I know you guys are obviously taking into consideration. So we're I know we're sort of coming to sort of the end of our end of the time now. Is there anything we always give the opportunity for the individual or an organisation to sort of do various shout outs, sort of say sort of what give a little message to the listeners. But is there anything that you would like to say, shout out, or anybody?
Yeah, actually there is. I got into a LinkedIn debate the other day with Greg something or other who used to run WWT over in Australia side of things, and
the more divisive the better.
Well that's the thing. That's where I'm getting to, right? Because the discussion was more around: do we need more thought leaders? Do we need more articles that are so generic that you can apply it to pretty much anything type stuff? And the debate was very much, well, how do people coming into the industry then break into the industry? If you've got end customers that are being bombarded with thousands of people that want to work with them, how do you break out of that noise and become vocal and break into that stuff? And my comment to that would be, don't just look at the small guys and think that they're small because of something that's gone wrong or bad or anything like that. Look at the small guys from an agility perspective, ability to affect their roadmap, ability to include yourself in that product development or anything like that. So that whole discussion that we've had around breaking into the industry and everything is just go for it. Just be bold with anything, and that comes from an umbrella standpoint. That comes from everything. We try and be as open as we can be with our customers and taking advice and roadmap additions and all that kind of stuff. And it makes it easier when you're that smaller company that's growing, because those customers become integral to the growth and as important as possible. And it's the same with staff members. It's the same with people breaking into the market.
Okay.
Give them a chance. It's more about people than it is about anything else.
Okay, so you kind of a couple of points there. So one is sort of around that give us a chance. We've got product flexibility on our side. Yeah, the big operators aren't the be all and end all.
Yes.
And then from a individual perspective, looking to get into the industry, is that sort of a message to employers, or is it a message for the individual? The individual go for it, and for the employers, give them a chance. Is that the?
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, and to your original earlier question of technology accreditations and how did I get technical and from sales and side of things, it's the same answer, right? It's you're hiring a person, you're hiring an attitude, and it's the same with the service provider. You're hiring an attitude, you're hiring a group of people. It's less necessarily about the technology side when you're leaving that to a third-party OEM, for example.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more about, nowadays, it's a lot more about soft skills. It's a lot more about empathy. It's a lot more about trying to understand someone else's motives in the world. And they're the people that are actually going to change organizations and help. And there are very few of those out there that are trying to get their voices heard, but they won't be as aggressive as a traditional salesperson, so they might not get above the noise type stuff.
And who was the gentleman? Did you say the gentleman's name's Greg? Is it
Greg Vander something or other? I can't remember. The guy who, he used to run security at WWT, I think, for Australia area. Now he's a consultancy, but he's a really good disruptor in the market of questioning whether or not directions are actual real directions, and
we love
stuff.
disruptors. We love disruptors.
Absolutely.
So, Greg, if you are listening, and I'm sure Mike will.
I'll tag him later on. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I can't remember.
Please come on and we'll have a chat. But Mike, thank you very much for coming on the show. Of
course.
I know it's a bit of a not too much of a trip, but it's always a pleasure to see you, and I'm sure we'll have a catch up after this anyway. For everyone listening, thank you very much. This is the Cyber Show. I've been Pip Blake, and you've been beautiful. Thank you very much.